Okay, I want to welcome the 2020 graduating class of the Governor STEM Scholars. We have a very special guest for you tonight. It is basically someone who is about your age, matter of fact, and who has she got her bachelor's degree at the Stevens Institute of Technology and in chemical engineering, and then she went on for her master's degree in mechanical engineering, but she's actually a rocket scientist. So we're going to hear a little bit about her because she started her own company and she actually has some investors coming into it. So she's a very, very interesting person who's just a little older than you are. But Monica Troutman is co-founder of propulsion and propulsion engineer at Hudson Space Systems. But first, I want to ask you, Monica, I thought it would be good to do this kind of an interview because it just makes it easier for us, especially doing it with the virtual process. But how did you make a decision to go to Stevens and stay in New Jersey? You're originally from where?
I'm from Wayne, New Jersey, so very close.
And what made you decide to go to Stevens Institute of Technology?
So I had a rather unorthodox and not very spoken about path to Stevens. As a high school student, I had quite a lot of interests. I enjoyed science and mathematics, but I also enjoyed writing, and I was in choirs and orchestras and wrote in a literary magazine. So I figured that because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do yet, that I would choose a school that had a good STEM program in general. And I thought that in order to succeed in STEM, you had to go to a big name university. So when I was in your shoes, I applied to every Ivy League you can name on the East Coast. I thought I was a shoo-in. I had like all of the great standardized testing scores. I took every AP I could when I was in high school, and I was the valedictorian in my class. So I just thought it was very logical. And when everyone was getting their college acceptances, I got almost entirely college rejections from everywhere except my backup school. And my backup school was Stevens, which I chose on a whim because they had reached out to me about their musical ensemble opportunities. And I really was interested in pursuing my vocal career as well. But at the time, I was absolutely devastated because for the last 4 years, everyone around me had been stressing the importance of going to a good college. And I thought in order for a college to be good, it had to be Ivy. So I went to Stevens and I learned exactly how wrong that was. It was crazy that I had believed that so strongly. Looking back at the past 5 years now, I think like there are three general categories you can sum up what's important for your college. And one of them is obviously your education, but I think that people don't tell high school graduates that just as important as that is the people that your school can introduce you to and inspire you by, and then that underlying theme that connects all of your classes. The quality of your education doesn't come from the name of the school, it comes from the professors you have. It comes from the passion they have for their studies and how well they communicate that. And what I valued at Stevens was that so many of my professors were speaking not from research experience, but from industry. They knew what was a practical education and what would prepare us for the real world. So when I finished, I felt more ready to encounter the problems than I think I could if I had any other education. And from my first week at Stevens, I had 4 months of meetings laid out with the CEO of Whiting Turner, the past CEO of Verizon, and the past CEO of EDP. All these incredible opportunities to meet incredibly accomplished people who knew what they had experienced and could tell us what to expect and how to inspire us, which was incredible. Like, who knew? I never knew that those opportunities were waiting for me here. And now that I talk to engineers from other schools, what stands out to me the most is how differently we all approach problems. I value the approach that was taught to me by Stevens because it's grounded in the reality of the world we live in. And I see now that there is not another place I could have gone which would have prepared me better for the problems that I see in the world ahead of us. So,
How did you sort through all those interests of yours? I mean, your music and all the other things. And I knew you liked STEM and the science area, but and then what pulled this whole team together that you seem to be working with and starting up this company?
so I focused in on STEM because it was something that intellectually really inspired me, and I thought I had the best range of opportunities to explore that. I felt I was like almost pigeonholing myself the least and giving myself the most opportunities to learn as I went through college, and find more through experience what I would enjoy, because I knew that I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go yet. And it was about getting all those experiences and learning from so many different people, until I felt until I found where I felt the most comfortable and the most like I was in the right place doing the thing that I felt I could contribute the most to and have the best impact on the world. How I chose the group of people for this project was actually, it was more of a communal, we knew that they were good engineers who were excited to undertake something that was crazy challenging, who were excited by that challenge and up for whatever it would bring along, and who were just interested in learning from the opportunity.
And I mean, space. I mean, you had some experience at NASA, and I just wondered how how did this all come together? You know, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. You know, it's hard to see how the pieces come together.
Yeah, so my experience at NASA actually followed from this project. And this project started, mostly from a dream to do something big. So at Stevens, our senior capstone is called senior design. And most seniors choose to make something that's like a small prototype of a robotic system or an app or a coded system. And a number of friends and I realized that we had the opportunity to try something really big and really challenging and to fail without much repercussion, which is one of the biggest luxuries that we realized as engineers we would ever have. So we decided to go as big as we could. And at that time, that was let's build a rocket to send to space. And that meant we had 1 year and only as much money as we could raise. Um, that's literally the first thing that set off my path here. It was that dream to do something that was really big and really challenging. Um, and it was in that experience that I realized that I really enjoyed propulsion engineering, because I've always enjoyed like fire and exciting rapid exothermic chemical reactions, so essentially explosions. It took me changing my major 3 times to figure out how to pursue that in a career sense. And I love the challenge I found at our project. Our project was called Castle Point Rocketry. And at CPR, I realized that I had all these interesting conglomerations of challenging problems, but also creative problem solving and technical analysis that made me feel very fulfilled. For the longest time, I never consciously thought about pursuing aerospace engineering because I thought it was too hard or I didn't know enough to consider approaching it. And it was only through trying and really thinking, I'm just going to give my all and see what comes of it, that I found that I loved it. I loved the inherent industry, the adventure surrounding the inherent space flight and space exploration industry. And I found myself properly inspired and challenged, which is how I knew I was like finally in the right place.
You know, the thing that when I think of space, you talk about doing something big. I mean, that's big. And I think about a lot of money involved in this. But tell us what Hudson Space Systems is doing. I mean, what niche did you see? What was that little uh, opening that you saw wasn't being filled with your experience at NASA and also just your education? What did you see that needed filling?
So through this process of working at CPR, the strategy my team had developed in approaching this problem was by using technological advances like 3D metal laser sintering and new composite technology, and using all of those advances in one rocket that could reach the Kármán line, which is the unofficial boundary of space, as affordably and as quickly as possible. And this was again on 1 year and as much money as we could raise. So that meant that on nights that we weren't up till 3 a.m. on technical challenges, we were reaching out to sponsors and companies and individuals who were excited by this possibility, this challenge of quickly and affordably reaching space. And we realized there were so many other people excited by this because there weren't many other people who were talking about reaching space affordably, right? When you think about space, you think about big name companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, but you don't realize that there are other people in space like Shell and Merck who are doing biomedical research or petroleum research, because microgravity offers some very interesting opportunities for more rapid research in ways that we can't develop in gravity environments. And as we learned more about the space industry, we realized that we had the unique opportunity in the rocket we were developing to bring other companies and other universities to research in space for the price of like a Vespa instead of an Audi. And we realized we could make this affordable and accessible for more people, which was exciting to us because we could contribute to the larger development of this scientific body of research. And sponsors who were impressed by our progress and development as a student group became advisors and seed investors because they realized that this was a project of hope, of building more possible research opportunities for everyone across the globe.
Now, this is something you have something that propels itself up to just getting into space. What do they call that line? It's called the
Kármán line.
The Kármán line. But then it goes up and then it comes back down quickly.
Yes.
What is that? I mean, what can you test in that bit of time?
So we provide approximately 3 minutes of microgravity. For context here, there is research that occurs within cellular structure and basic particle physics that takes use of drop towers, which offer like 0.3 seconds of microgravity. So 3 minutes is relatively a considerable amount. And if you are designing your experiments with that in mind, you can achieve a lot.
And where does all this take? Where is the company and where do you shoot these rockets off? I mean, we all want to come and watch.
So we're currently based out of Hoboken because we want to maintain ties with Stevens. We know that in order to keep on the cutting edge, the best resource we have are students like yourselves who have these great ideas and have this potential and are just fresh and have learned so much information and are eager and excited to use that. So we're staying in Hoboken so that we can keep talking to these college graduates and keep our influx of ideas fresh. So that means that from our testing days, when we had originally started testing, we were testing out of a soy field in South Jersey. Going forward, our launches we're hoping to do out of the desert in New Mexico, but that's a little bit down the line.
That takes the resources, and you're able to get the resources. What's that like when you start a company and you're out there asking for money? I mean, how do you have to prepare for that?
It's definitely stressful. The first thing you need to do is remember that your problem is worth solving. If you have created this company and you genuinely believe that it can add value to the world around you, then all you have to do is convince other people of that same point of view, right? So it's if you stop thinking about it like, how do I get this funded, and more like, how do I get people to understand that this is a genuine problem that exists in the world, something that I can contribute to and I have the answer to, then you have far more of a chance of meeting people who will believe the same.
So it takes some perseverance and persuasion.
Yes.
And also I would imagine a good business model, because going into space is not cheap.
No, definitely not. And knowing that you don't have all the cards, if you, like, for instance, I don't have too much experience in business, but talking to other business majors at Stevens, learning more about the fields that I wasn't too prepared for, reaching out and getting advisors and talking to other entrepreneurs and learning from what they have learned from was the biggest, most helpful thing that we could have done for us as a company.
Is that something that you can share? Is this something that you would leave with this class of STEM scholars, is that there's hope and that there's a lot of opportunity out there?
Absolutely. I think a STEM major is the single most versatile person that you can be. STEM doesn't teach you a thing. It doesn't teach you like a subject. It teaches you a way to think, a way to approach problems, a way to view the world around you. And that is limitless. So what you do with that is entirely up to you. Like, especially with the world we live in right now, which is entirely technologically interweaved, you can take your degree anywhere from healthcare to finance, to sociology. You can do so much. And it's up to you to really define the bounds of what we know as humans, what we can build, what we can learn from the world around us. Especially given the current circumstances, like right now with COVID and with the virus, we have we're learning that our system that we built around us has problems and has failings. And as STEM engineers, as STEM scientists and engineers, we are problem solvers. We are uniquely ready to address these problems we see. And we also uniquely understand the importance of data and research. So it's not only up to you and us to solve the problems we see, but to be the spokespeople for what have we learned, what do we know from data and research, and what direction do we move in next?
And as a woman in this area, do you have a lot of fellow colleagues who are women and in astrophysics and all that? I mean, is that changing? Do you see more women involved in the STEM fields?
I do. I see more women. I don't know too many in aerospace yet, but I know a lot of women that I've met at Stevens who are incredibly capable across the board, from mechanical engineering to robotics and control systems to civil engineering and traffic design. And I think we're all realizing that there is so much potential for us within the STEM field. And the best thing, I think, the most strange thing that I've realized talking to my friends who are women in the world is sometimes there's this overwhelming period and sense of imposter syndrome. Like we aren't ready, or we're not big enough, or we don't know enough to solve the problems we see in front of us. But the most important thing to remember is that exists entirely inside your own head. It's whether that's because of what you've been taught or what you've seen or the society you've seen around you, you are limitless and you can approach the problems that you think are too big and too challenging. In fact, if something is scary and if something seems too big, you should run towards it, because those problems are only going to make you like a better engineer. Even if they're hard, you're only going to learn more and more, and that failure will only teach you more than what you knew before.
Well, this has been just a wonderful keynote address for this scholar for the 2020 graduating class. And Thomas Edison in New Jersey always said, success comes to those who hustle while they wait. And obviously you've been hustling, and it's great to see the success that you've had so far. And I know we're going to see a lot more. Thank you, Monica, very much on behalf of the class, we want to thank you for taking the time to do this with us. And we really appreciate all your advice at this time.
Of
Thank
course.
you. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm excited to see where all of you go and the great problems that you can solve and the great things you discover. I know it'll be incredible. I wish I could be there to meet every single one of you and to learn about the awesome things you've been researching.
Thank you very much, Monica. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.